Well, this was a fun little project. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with it when I started. I laminated that one board up. This was the ornament I was originally thinking in my head, with this like tornado pattern and very small rings and a filio on the bottom. It came out good, but it's not really my favorite. But then I made a bell, a balloon, if you will, a sphere, and a bunch of these things, which were really easy to do. And my wife had an idea of stacking some up and making it even more interesting. So I made one of those. But you can see I got a whole bunch of ornaments out of one 2-foot long laminated board. So pretty productive use of a piece of wood, and most of it was scraps and leftovers. I'm going to laminate them together, and I'll show the next step after that. But the next step is I'm going to flatten these at least on one side perfectly so I can laminate them together. So I'm trying to make a roughly square piece. It's going to be about 2 1/4 both ways. So I had some thin stock left over from another project I'm going to put in here, and I'm going to laminate them together. So now that I have a nice block of wood, long enough to make a couple or several ornaments probably, I'm going to turn it round. That's pretty round. There's one low spot right here, but that's good enough for then moving on to the next step. So I'm going to try cutting slices on the wedgie sled. I've got the stop block set for just under 3/16. So that's an option. I'm still playing around with options before I glue anything together. Okay, so I'm going to try turning the one with the pattern on it first. And basically I'm going to try to make a spindle, a small spindle out of it. I'm going to use a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge. I'll start with the bowl gouge. My wife pointed out to me that the cross section of this really does kind of look like a Christmas ball all by itself. So I am going to try to make a sphere or close to a sphere out of this. Okay, so I have this piece mounted between centers. I'm going to try to do the whole turning between centers on this one. And I'm going to try to make a sphere or close to a sphere. It's getting pretty close now. I think I might sand first. That's what I'm going to do. Sand first, get this down to 220 or 320, something like that, and then work on that. Well, I've got it down to 1/4 inch or less, and I'm going to finish the cutoff manually. Oh well, that end came off all by itself, and that one did too now. So I'm just going to sand those nubs down, and then it'll be done. So these Christmas ornaments, the intention is that they will slide into each other. So I need to cut that little slot out, and I'm going to cut the straight lines going in on the bandsaw, and then I'll just use a little fret saw to cut the side. I won't show the fret saw cut. There it is. Okay, in this piece of video, I'm going to show putting these two halves together. They have been sanded, the slot's been cut in them, and this one fits together almost perfectly. So I'm just going to use bare glue. This one has a little bit of wider slot, so I'll demonstrate what to do when you have that happen. This next one has a small gap, and what I'm going to do is I've cut a piece of veneer that's the right size to go in there, and I'm going to glue it up the same way and then put that veneer in to fill the gap. And it pretty closely matches that wood in the middle. It's not an exact match, but it's pretty close. And all you Okay, the final step on all of these ornaments is how to hang them. So I have these tiny little screw eyes that you can get on Amazon in a pack like that, different colors. I'm going to poke it with this miniature awl in the center on the top, just to start a hole. So I have a fourth ornament type that I'm going to try to get out of the same stick of wood. This one's going to be a bell. This will be the top. I'm also ultimately going to get this in a chuck. I've got it between centers. I'm going to rough this out and make it round, make a tenon out of it, and then put it on a chuck so I can do the rest of the carving on here. Well, that is close to the shape I want. Obviously, I'm going to make the top round, but I'm going to wait to thin that out until after I get the inside done. So the next step I'm going to do is release the tailstock, and I'm going to try drilling a hole probably down to about here. So I'll have to measure that. So I measured the thinnest part here. It's about 1 7/8. So I'm using a 1 3/8 bit, which should give me a little better than a 1/4 inch wall even in the skinny spot. And I want to go in about 2 inches. So 7/8 is where the bit touches that. So on the quill, I'm going to use the measurement on the quill and try to get that close to 2 inches. So I started turning on this thinking I'd make a sphere, and now I've changed my mind. I'm going to go with more or less this shape, and I'm going to try to leave a little bit of the maple on either end. It's a laminated piece anyway, so I'm going to try to round it and round that, just to make it a little bit different than the other ones I made.